Hello and welcome to episode 27 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As normal, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. Hi, Dean. Manchester City are crowned champions now, deserved champions, but now all eyes will focus on who is going to challenge Pep Guardiola's side for the Premier League title next season. So expecting a busy transfer window.
Yeah, exactly that. No one's really come close to them this season, have they? And it's, United have put up some sort of attempt. But I think that, if United recruit properly this summer, then there is a possibility that they could actually mount a proper title charge next season. I think they're probably 2 or 3 players short of being able to do that. And let's see this time whether they can actually pull off the window that they're planning and get those big names over the line.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer. I think there's going to have to be a bit of a domino effect for some of these big name players to possibly leave due to tight finances at a lot of clubs. One of the players, Dean, that's been mentioned as a possible departure this summer is Mo Salah at Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool will be desperate to keep hold of the Egyptian if they are to mount a bid to try and regain the title from Manchester City next year. But Salah came out last week and openly admitted he hasn't been approached over a new contract yet. And then there was a few rumours suggesting he was top of PSG's list if Kylian Mbappe were to leave the French capital. What's your take on Mo Salah's future?
I think he wants to leave personally. I do. I think that I've heard, for a while now that is people working on his behalf are searching for a club for him, seeing what avenues are out there. It's obviously not difficult. It's not easy to find a new home for somebody like Mo Salah. But ultimately, it's been a disappointing year at Liverpool. They're not going to be in the Champions League. And, what will they be in Europe? Like any Europa League? I don't know. Like at this rate, they might be in the Europa Conference. I just think that Mo Salah's reached a crossroads and that he's ready to consider the next move. Like he's loved being at Liverpool, I think, but I don't think for him it's the be all and end all of his career. I think that there's something that comes next, and that something in his eyes is something big where he's continuing to win titles and Champions Leagues. And PSG, to be honest, is one of the only doors I can see opening to him. It's going to be dependent on Kylian Mbappe leaving, but if Mbappe does go, I can see that cropping up over the summer, and it being a real dilemma for Liverpool. At some point, one of Firmino, Salah, and Mane was always going to leave, and I was always told like the first one to go will be Salah because he's the one with the most ambition. And here we are; it might actually happen.
Yeah, it's a big decision to be made by Mo Salah and Liverpool this summer as well. But with the Mo Salah situation, as you said, the door will probably only open if Kylian Mbappe does leave PSG. Obviously, we've seen Neymar has signed a new contract at PSG last week to pledge his future to the club. Obviously, Mbappe, I think, just 1 year left on his contract. PSG really can't afford to let him run that down, can they?
They can't really know, so that's why it's a big summer for them as well, and for Kylian Mbappe to decide what he wants to do next. I think you look at this, Mbappe, he's only 22, fair, but he's been playing at the top level in France now for 5 years. Last year, got to the Champions League final, couldn't take that final step. This year, gets the Champions League semi-final. They're just not good enough. Is there part of him now thinking like, I might not win the Champions League if I stay here? Like, probably time to go. Don't forget, Kylian Mbappe is an explosive footballer, one that is in danger of picking up an injury that could seriously hamper his playing style. Like the way that he plays, his reliance on speed and agility. One bad hamstring injury like Michael Owen got at 20 years old, and suddenly you're not going to reach the levels that you should be playing at. And I don't want to be down on him and say he's going to get an injury, but it's always a possibility. So when you get to this age of 22, approaching 23, you've seriously got to start thinking about getting to that step of winning the Champions League. And basically he needs to come away, in my eyes, from Liga now. He's been there for long enough. We know that he could play at that level. Like, let's see him go and play in La Liga, and see if he can do it at Real Madrid. If they can raise the money, of course. I mean, that's the other thing. Because the Super League fell through, I don't know if Real Madrid can even afford it. And that's one thing, I guess, that works in PSG's favour. Like, they've always got Qatar funding in the background. Like, most clubs don't have that.
Yeah, it's as you said, Mbappe, it'd be a dream signing for Real Madrid is sort of getting close to what PSG would want for the French international as well. But along with Mbappe, you stick to Real Madrid, Dean. Eden Hazard's had a real difficult season this year for the Spanish Giants, and obviously didn't do himself any favours last week when he was pictured joking with his ex-Chelsea teammates just after that Champions League exit at the hands of the Blues as well. He's obviously come in for a lot of criticism from some pundits and fans at Real Madrid. Again, what's your take on Eden Hazard's future? Because that move just hasn't worked out for him so far.
Hasn't worked out, no, and I think that he's going to be kind of the next target of fans at Real Madrid. You know, they targeted Bale. They didn't particularly ever take to him. Even when he's scoring in Champions League finals, it wasn't enough to win over the Real Madrid fans. And Hazard had such a difficult start to his Real Madrid career that I think it's going to go a similar way. It's not his fault because it's a lot of injuries that he just can't do anything about. He just can't get going. Even when he does play, he's not having anything like the type of impact he had at Chelsea. And it's difficult. And part of me does wonder, and one potential idea that I've heard mooted is that what if Real Madrid are desperate to get Kylian Mbappe and they haven't got the money, what if they throw Eden Hazard into that deal and Eden Hazard goes and plays for PSG? To be honest, maybe not the worst idea I've ever heard. For Hazard, I mean, it would be disappointing to leave Real Madrid after failing to live up to the price tag and the expectation. But ultimately, if he's not going to fit in, then maybe it's better to cut your losses early and go to a club like PSG where he'll be fine, he'll thrive. So that's another idea I've heard put out there. So look, yeah, if PSG lose Kylian Mbappe, they've got to replace him. Do they want Mo Salah? Do they want Eden Hazard? They're two really good options for them. And I think that those are the type of avenues they'll be looking down if they have to.
Yeah, these big clubs, even though we all know how rich they are, they have struggled with the COVID crisis and everything else. So they're going to have to be inventive in the transfer market, and swap deals and exchanges are going to be the way this summer, I think. So maybe if you can get rid of your unwanted players like a Hazard, offer him to PSG for an Mbappe, there's a real potential that deal could then happen.
Exactly, yeah. You know, they'll be getting Bale out the door again as well as soon as they can, and having, getting rid of Bale and Hazard. I think it sounds, if you were to go back a few years and say, oh, they're desperate to offload Bale and Hazard, like, it would sound a bit silly, wouldn't it? But now that's the kind of situation I think Real Madrid are in. They've had a really weird season. They've been very inconsistent. They haven't been easy on the eye, and I think they've probably got away with it because there's been no fans in there to kind of protest at what they're watching. That's not going to be the case for much longer. And so Zidane and the people running Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, have to quickly decide what they're going to do here. Of course, look, Perez to give up on Hazard would be a big deal. Like, it took a lot to get Hazard out of Chelsea and pay what they wanted. So to give up on Hazard would still be strange for him to do. But ultimately, Mbappe is the golden egg, like that's the player they want for the next 10 years, ultimately. He could be like their next Ronaldo. So let's see. If that's what it takes, then I think they'd probably do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of big clubs across Europe this summer, Dean, facing massive rebuilding jobs. One of those is Arsenal in the Premier League. Obviously, we talked last week about the pressure on Mikel Arteta. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to lead his team to that Europa League final just to increase the scrutiny on his long-term position at the Emirates as well. It does seem the club are going to back him, though, and they're going to stick by the Spaniards for next season as well. And with that, it seems there's going to be a lot of changes with playing personnel as well. Lots of talk that they need to sell players before they can buy for next season as well. So some of the names being mentioned that are being offloaded or they're willing to sell: Leno, Lacazette, Nketiah, Maitland-Niles, Torreira, Guendouzi. We've also got Kolasinac as well, who's obviously been away out on loan as well. What do you think of what's going on, Arsenal? It's such a big summer ahead for them because they can't afford to fall any further behind the leading teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 or 4 summers have been key for Arsenal, and a lot of the time they haven't made the most of it. They've tried to kind of make a statement before when they went for Nicolas Pepe, but they massively overspent on him, and it's affected them, long term in terms of what they can do, in future seasons. And also, contracts like the one for Aubameyang put him in a difficult situation because then when you are making signings, people now know what he's earning. So want to get towards those kind of figures, and it's just not realistic at Arsenal. I think Stan Kroenke will give extra backing in the transfer window in terms of funds, but I don't think that the type of players that Arsenal need are going to be queuing up to come into the club. I think that that's the difficult situation they're in. So it's all well and good getting rid of those players that are around the fringes. But what are you replacing them with? Are they similar, or are they definitely better than those players? That's the difficulty that they're going to have. And I know that there are people around the club who are concerned about who actually will want to join them. Like, they're 9th in the Premier League right now. Like, they're a mid-table team, and they're not playing in Europe next season. I think it could be an opportunity for them to completely focus on the league. Of course, it can be. But you are also stuck in that situation where you've now got players in your squad who aren't convinced about the direction you're heading in. You've got players like Martin Odegaard who you want to join permanently, and they'll be like hesitant probably of doing so, even though Arteta had convinced them to come in the first place. And then, who can you get to come? I'm not convinced that it's going to be easy at all for them, even if Kroenke was to give them, he won't, but if he was to give them £100 million to spend, I think they'd struggle to spend it, because I don't know that there's the players there that can make enough of a difference on the team right now.
Yeah, let's go through some of the names that have been linked with Arsenal in recent days and weeks. Ryan Bertrand, Southampton, obviously he's out of contract this summer and has so far failed to agree a new deal at St Mary's as well. He'd be a good cover at left back for Kieran Tierney, who's obviously had his injury problems, and I think a good experienced pro maybe in that dressing room is probably what Arsenal need.
Yeah, but I mean, again,
doesn't set the pulses racing if you're an Arsenal fan. But
I don't think that that's going to be changing the course of your future, is it? Ryan Bertrand as a backup left back, like, yeah, a good professional and a good player, but they need to be improving that starting 11. That is ultimately where they need to be at, and Kieran Tierney is one of their best players, so that's a position I'm not too worried about for them. It's in the centre of the park where you lose the heart of a battle for me. You know, you still need someone in that centre of defence, like commanding. You still need someone in midfield that can make things happen. And, you know, look, Aaron Ramsey left a couple of years ago to go to Juve because ultimately he wanted a new challenge. He didn't want to become too comfortable at Arsenal, and he wanted to win things. And he's gone and he won Serie A with Juventus, but things haven't gone well for someone like Aaron Ramsey. There's part of me that wonders, like, maybe you need to bring back a player like that who's got Arsenal in his blood and has so much desire for that team to do well and is a top quality player. I know he's had injury problems, and it's always going to niggle away at him. And it would depend what kind of money Juve would want for him. But Aaron Ramsey will be, they'll be open to offers for Aaron Ramsey in the summer. So maybe you have to go down that path. I'm not saying buy every player that ever left you, but Aaron Ramsey, I think, is an example of a player that could still come back in and have an overall influence on the club. And I think that those are the sorts of deals that might come on the radar. They just need to find players that care as well as have that ability, in my eyes.
Yeah, obviously Arteta's going to have his work cut out, I think, with attracting players to Arsenal if they're not in European football next season. Sander Berg of Sheffield United's been linked in. He's a good Norwegian international, good midfielder. He would add something to that midfield. Also, a player you know a lot about, Moussa Dembele, the ex-Fulham striker. He's been mentioned now in some quarters as being a potential striking target if Lacazette were to leave, and maybe Nketiah as well. Not had the best of times at Atletico Madrid on loan from Lyon, but on his day, he's still a good striker.
Yeah, he has struggled a bit at Atletico, but he's very good. Yeah, he's very good. Not sure how he would fit into Arsenal's style of play right now, but I think you'd have to find a way. But he's a natural goal scorer. He's instinctive. He'll eat up chances around the box. So if you can find a style of football that suits him, then I think that would be a good signing. And perhaps those are the type of players that could work out, ones that are just on the fringes of those top clubs like Atletico. And, particularly in France, I think that the French clubs are where Arsenal will look. Teams in Liga have been really affected by the pandemic and have not made enough money to kind of be at the level they would have expected to be at right now. So they're going to have to listen to offers for key players. So teams like Lille, teams like Lyon are there for the taking right now. Their players are there. And I wouldn't surprise me at all if they're the clubs that Arsenal go looking at in the summer.
So, Dean, obviously Joachim Andersen's been one of those players linked with Arsenal as well. He's had a good season on loan at Fulham from Lyon, but it looks like he will be leaving the French club this summer, and also talk of Tottenham being interested in the Denmark internationals as well. So it could be a North London battle for Andersen's signature in the summer. Is he the type of player that Arsenal should be looking at?
Absolutely, he's so good. He's so good. I like one of the big downsides of Fulham being relegated is like losing this guy, because he would have probably signed permanently for Fulham because he was really enjoying it, like the club and being in London and stuff. And obviously, he's not going to play in the Championship, but he's brilliant. He completely transformed Fulham after he joined in terms of the defensive unit. I know that it's you say, well, he's been in a team that's been relegated, but honestly, like this guy will go into easily in a top 6 Premier League team and hold his own. And to be honest, I think Arsenal face a battle to get him, because from what I've heard, Tottenham are definitely in pole position to get him. They've actually monitored him for quite a long time. At least 3 years he's been on their radar, and they've been considering a move for him. And I think that from what I'm told, his performances at Fulham have just convinced them that this is the guy that they need to go for. Obviously, Tottenham need reinforcements in central defence. He won't cost too much either, really, in comparison to what you would play for some of the other top centre halves playing in Europe right now. So, yeah, I think that he would suit Arsenal, but I think he's going to end up at Tottenham.
The sad situation is for Arsenal fans that probably don't want to hear this right now, is that any potential transfer target would probably choose Spurs over Arsenal now as well.
Yeah, I mean, the majority would, unless they've got links to Kia Jarabchi, they're going to be going to White Hart Lane, I'm afraid, yeah.
It's going to be a real big summer ahead for Arsenal. Another player who has been linked to them, Dean, and who's had a very impressive season up to now is Yves Bissouma at Brighton. And the latest rumours out of Brighton seem to suggest that he has sort of suggested to the club that he would like to leave this summer. He's had a real impact under Graham Potter at Brighton as well, the Mali international. We've had Arsenal looking at him. We've also had Liverpool. There's also been talk Manchester City could be interested in his services if Fernandinho was to leave this summer and not sign a new contract as well. Is Bissouma somebody that you think could make that step up to a top 6 club?
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, and I think it doesn't totally surprise me that this would be the time for him to step on. I think, Brighton, I think that the league table is slightly deceptive when it comes to them, and that, they weren't as bad as it looks in the league table. The margins of them having a good season was so fine. Like, they could easily have been in the upper reaches of the table in my eyes. But Bissouma's one of the key players in there, and he's at an age now approaching his mid-20s where he'll want to kick on to the next level. And, being in and around the relegation battle isn't really going to suit him for much longer. Obviously, Brighton won't want to lose him, but if they do, they'll need to make it work for them as well. So it's going to take some negotiating. I don't think this is going to be an easy transfer for somebody to do, but I can definitely see why the player would be having his head turned at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, Brighton would consider offers for him. They think he's done enough for them, and if they could get maybe £40 million from this summer, they think that would represent a good deal for them to move him on as well, and not stand in his way to possibly move to a bigger club. And from what I'm also hearing is that Bissouma wants to join a club that's maybe playing in Europe, ideally Champions League. If not, it'll be somebody in Europa League. Liverpool have watched him quite a bit as well this season as a potential replacement for Gini Wijnaldum. Do you think he's somebody who could fit that void?
Yeah, I mean, £40 million is still quite a lot of money, though, in this market. Like, I'm not saying he's overpriced. I just think that at this moment in time, to spend £40 million on Yves Bissouma is a lot. So I'll be very intrigued to see if Liverpool would have £40 million to spend on him, because we've seen how hesitant they wouldn't spend, like, what was it, 53 million on Timo Werner, and he was a player that Jurgen Klopp was really keen on. So I would be surprised if Liverpool spent that money on him. But yeah, I think it's right that the Champions League or Europa League clubs will be queuing up to have a go at him, and they'll probably try and knock that down. I imagine 30 might become a bit more realistic.
Yeah, it's going to be a big summer for Bissouma and Brighton, and I'm sure he's going to have no shortage of offers probably in this summer's transfer window for who wants to sign him this summer. So Edinson Cavani signing a new deal, Dean. It's big boost for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his plans for next season.
Yeah, it really is. It's so important that they got this deal done. I think United fans would have felt shortchanged to have never actually seen him play for them in the flesh, because he's kind of become a hero for them this season, and he's that like all-round forward that they've really been crying out for. I think he suits the club really well, and I think that people who were mocking this signing at the start of the season now do look silly. When he arrived, it was at a time when people had been talking for months about the signing of Jadon Sancho, this bright young English forward coming in, and they ended up signing a 30-odd-year-old Edinson Cavani, who was a bit of an injury record, and people were like, "Oh, what a load of nonsense United's transfer strategy is." But that, the two weren't linked at all, and United were always looking to get in somebody with that experience, with that winning mentality, and all the things they thought and hoped Cavani could be, he's been. He's rubbed off on Mason Greenwood. He's just gives them an edge. And basically what it means is that now they've persuaded him to sign for another year, that they don't have to go and pursue a striker in this window. And that saves them a lot of money. And it gives them another year to think about whether they need to buy a forward or whether Mason Greenwood can be ready to take over that central role. And that's really important. It also means that they can invest that extra cash in Jadon Sancho. It's funny, I've seen reports in the last few days saying Man United will still go for Harry Kane. I've also seen reports saying Man United will no longer go for Jadon Sancho. But I can only go by what I'm told. And, I've got reasonably good sources on United stories. And I'm hearing the opposite, to be honest. Harry Kane is not going to be pursued now. But Jadon Sancho absolutely is. So that's where I think we're at. I think that we're now in a position where United can go be comfortable with the fact that Cavani's done in that position. And if they can get Sancho through the door as well, then their attacking options next season are serious. That's a lot of threat, with Rashford, Greenwood, Fernandes, Cavani, Sancho, and even Pogba now as well. You think Pogba's playing in a role on the left that has really suited him. And I think if they can get him to stay as well, those are 6 players that could seriously give you a chance to challenge him for the title.
Yeah, really strong attacking options that Solskjaer has now got at Old Trafford, and he's going to need them if he is to try and wrestle that title away from Manchester City next summer as well. And if Cavani now stays for this extra year, Dean, which he is, does that give United time maybe to settle for Haaland? Maybe not this summer, but next summer?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And to be honest, I really don't think Erling Haaland is going to leave Borussia Dortmund this summer. So I think that suits United perfectly. Dortmund look like they're going to qualify for the Champions League now. When they beat RB Leipzig at the weekend, which basically means that they should make it the top 4, Haaland was jumping up and down in the stands like he was a fan, like he's been supporting the club his whole life. And I think that emotion shows you that he really cares for Dortmund and that he doesn't want to leave right now. He wants one more crack at it, trying to win Bundesliga with them. And also it means that next summer, when his clause kicks in, which is a very realistic number, 70 odd million, every club that is interested in him will be able to afford him. And what that means is he's got his pick of clubs. He can decide if he wants to go to Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, Man City. It'll all be on the table for him and he can decide where he wants to go. So yeah, I think that Edinson Cavani does mean that United now have a year to put a plan together to get Haaland in. And look, who knows, in a year's time, maybe Haaland and Sancho are reunited at Old Trafford.
Yeah, exciting summer ahead for Manchester United, and I think a big boost for the fans that Cavani has now decided to stay, and they will get to see him in the flesh next season at Old Trafford as well. One team that we won't see at Old Trafford next season, Dean, is Fulham, following relegation from the Premier League being confirmed on Monday after the defeat to Burnley. All the question marks now are surrounding the long-term future of Scott Parker. He was obviously non-committal after the defeat to Burnley on his own future. He's obviously been linked with the Tottenham job as well due to his past links there as well. What's your take on Scott Parker's future at Fulham?
I think it's a really difficult situation. I think that there are stories now saying that Fulham want Scott Parker to stay. And partly that is true. And I think Scott Parker wants to stay. I think it's the conditions that Scott Parker's got to work in that are going to go against him. And I think that he's got a really tricky one here, because I think that he'll be basically made to work in the Championship with a group of players that he doesn't necessarily think are up to it, or certainly up to playing under his style. Fulham had a lot of players out on loan. I think they'll all come back, and I think they'll all be expected to be fitted back in again. And obviously they've had players on loan themselves this season, and all of those will go back. So he's got a difficult job. Fulham's transfer strategy doesn't suit Scott Parker. He doesn't like the idea of signing all their players on stats. But ultimately, this is how it is. And he's in a bit of a tough situation, because the people above him will say, yeah, carry on. And he's like, okay, I do want to carry on, but can I please have a couple of players I actually want? And can these guys please leave because they don't fit in? And I don't want them. And that's where he's going to be like, no, you've got to work in it. So he's either, at some point, this frustration is going to boil over from one side or the other. I don't know which side it will be, but I just can't see a situation where Tony Khan, the director of football, and Scott Parker, the manager, actually get along and agree on everything. And I think that at some point that's going to cost Fulham. So he might still be the manager at the start of next season. But that doesn't mean that it's all rosy. Like it just means that things might still come to a head. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if they can try and find some middle ground over the next month or so.
Yeah, I think a similar situation to Slavisa Jokanovic found himself with Fulham. He wanted more input into the signings and the potential transfers at Craven Cottage. But obviously, like you mentioned, Dean, a lot of it is done on stats at Fulham right now as well. But like Scott Parker said, it's been a roller coaster for Fulham over the last couple of years. I'm sure he would love to stay there if he was given more control and try and lead them back to the Premier League like he did last season at the first time of asking.
Yeah, of course he would. I mean, look, Scott Parker's a really, really respected coach as well, and I think he's done a good job, and he's learnt very quickly on the job when things haven't gone well. He's learnt from what's not going well. Okay, like you could say, like Fulham don't have enough attacking threat, and that's fair. But I think it's something that hopefully will come with time, and as he's continues as a manager. He's only been in the role like 18 months, if even that. So, he'll be, to be honest, even if he leaves Fulham, he'll be fine. Like he's already being linked with the Tottenham job at a time when he's getting relegated with Fulham. And that's because people within the game know how good he is at what he's been doing around Fulham, and how his relationships have been with players, and how he thinks tactically. I think the Tottenham job's too early for him. I don't think he's a genuine candidate for that job at the moment. But also, say the FA think highly of Scott Parker. What if he was to go and be the next England under-21 manager? What if he was to take a route like Gareth Southgate took to being then a future England manager? There are going to be so many options that open up to him in future years that even if he does lose his job, he'll be totally fine.
That's us for another week here on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for more insight on the latest news and gossip in the world of football.